Hello everyone. Welcome to the Ocean Sound Storytelling Channel. I am the storyteller, and today I am so happy to be with you. You may be curled up under a blanket or listening with your ears on a soft pillow. Wherever you are, whatever the time, thank you for being here. Before we begin with an interesting story, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so I know you enjoy relaxing moments like this. Where are you from? Send me a little hello in the comments. I would love to know which corner of the world you are listening from. Now, relax your body. Close your eyes and let the gentle waves take you into a gentle story, a little strange, a little mysterious, but warm enough to lull you to sleep all night long. So, are you ready? Tonight's story begins. The Enchanted Reflection. The boutique hummed with the frenetic energy of post-Christmas sales. Shoppers jostled for space, arms laden with discounted luxury goods, their voices blending into a discordant symphony of complaints and excitement. Sarah Jensen stood behind the counter, her forced smile threatening to crack under the weight of another 12-hour shift. Her reflection in the glass display case stared back at her, a pale, tired face framed by hair that refused to cooperate, despite the expensive products she used. "Miss, excuse me, miss." A sharp voice cut through the din. Sarah turned to see a woman, her arms stacked with silk scarves, glaring at her. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" she replied, her voice coated in faux cheer. "These are marked as 40% off, but they're ringing up wrong," the woman snapped. Sarah bit her tongue and nodded, mechanically punching the register. The scarf woman wasn't the first difficult customer of the day, and she wouldn't be the last. As she resolved the issue, Sarah's gaze flicked to the far end of the boutique. A figure lingered by the antique mirror display. A woman draped in a long coat, her dark hair veiling her face. She seemed out of place among the boutique's usual clientele. Her movements were deliberate, almost hypnotic, as she traced her gloved fingers along the edge of a large gilded mirror. "Miss Jensen!" The scarf woman's irritated bark snapped Sarah back to reality. She completed the transaction, apologized for the inconvenience, and handed over the neatly bagged scarves. When she looked back, the mysterious woman was gone. In her place, on the counter near the register, sat a package wrapped in shimmering silver paper. Sarah frowned. "Did someone leave this here?" She called to her co-worker, Heather, who was restocking handbags. Heather glanced over, shrugged, and returned to her task. Curiosity got the better of her. She picked up the package and turned it over. Her name was scrawled across the silver wrapping in elegant script. Sarah Jensen. Her breath caught. What the? Secret admirer? Heather teased, smirking. Sarah flushed. No idea. She hesitated, then carefully peeled back the paper. Inside was a wooden box with delicate carvings. She unlatched it, revealing an antique hand mirror nestled in velvet. It was breathtaking. The silver filigree frame was adorned with tiny, intricate designs, flowers, vines, and what appeared to be a pair of eyes etched at the top. The glass was oddly pristine, almost luminous. A shiver ran down her spine as she gazed at it. The shop's fluorescent lights dimmed for a brief moment, flickering just enough to make her look around uneasily. "Spooky," Heather said, her tone light, but her eyes wary. "You gonna keep it?" Sarah's fingers lingered on the mirror's handle. She wanted to say no, to put it back in the box and leave it there, but something about it called to her. Yeah, she said softly. It's beautiful. Heather shrugged and returned to the handbags. Sarah slipped the mirror back into its box and placed it in her bag. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of customers and complaints, but Sarah couldn't shake the image of the woman at the mirror display. As she locked up for the night, she glanced over her shoulder one last time. The boutique was empty, save for the faintest impression of a handprint on the glass of the largest mirror. Sarah settled into her apartment, a modest one-bedroom filled with mismatched furniture and an air of functional neglect. The antique mirror sat on her coffee table, its polished silver glinting under the dim light of a single lamp. Her cat, Milo, circled the mirror, sniffing at the velvet-lined box before retreating to his perch by the window. "You don't like it either, huh?" Sarah murmured, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. She couldn't explain why she had brought it home. Something about the mirror tugged at her, a mix of unease and fascination. She reached out hesitantly and lifted it, her fingers tracing the intricate designs along the handle. When she finally looked into it, her breath hitched. The face staring back wasn't hers, or at least, it wasn't the face she was used to. Her reflection was flawless. Her skin glowed with a porcelain smoothness that seemed almost too perfect. Her lips were fuller, her eyes brighter and more alive. Even her hair fell in soft, elegant waves, like something out of an advertisement. She touched her cheek, half expecting to feel the warmth and suppleness of the reflection, but her fingers met the usual uneven texture. Her reflection smiled faintly, though she had not. Her stomach twisted. She set the mirror down quickly and rubbed her eyes. Long day. I'm losing it, she muttered, but curiosity gnawed at her. She picked it up again. The reflection was the same, perfect. Yet as she studied it, she noticed something disconcerting. Her eyes, they weren't quite right. Behind the radiance lay a coldness, an almost predatory gleam. She tried looking away, but her gaze kept returning to the glass. A soft knock at the door jolted her, breaking the spell. She set the mirror down and crossed the room, peering through the peephole. Lisa stood on the other side, her arms laden with a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout. "Thought you might need cheering up," Lisa said as Sarah opened the door. She kicked off her boots and plopped onto the couch. Sarah forced a smile. "You didn't have to do that." Lisa shrugged. "You've been weird lately. Figured you could use some company." As Lisa unpacked their dinner, her eyes landed on the mirror. "What's this?" "Just something someone left at the boutique," Sarah said quickly. "Weird, right?" Lisa picked it up, turning it over in her hands. "It's gorgeous. Antique?" "Probably." Lisa tilted the mirror toward herself and frowned. "This thing's creepy. It's like..." She trailed off, her face tightening. "Like what?" Lisa handed it back hastily. "I don't know. It just gave me the shivers. You should sell it or something." Sarah laughed nervously. "Yeah, maybe." The two settled in, eating and catching up, but Sarah's attention kept straying to the mirror. After Lisa left, she found herself sitting alone with it again, the room unnervingly quiet. She picked it up one last time before bed. The reflection was still her, but the longer she stared, the less she recognized the person in the glass. It wasn't just the perfection. It was the way the image seemed to breathe, to shimmer faintly, as though it were alive. A single word echoed faintly in her mind. More. Startled, she dropped the mirror. It landed with a dull thud, unbroken. Shaking, she turned it face down and left it on the table. But even as she crawled into bed and pulled the covers over her head, the whispered word seemed to linger in the air. The new year arrived quietly. Sarah had spent the evening alone, ignoring calls from Lisa and other friends, unable to shake her preoccupation with the mirror. It remained on her coffee table, face down, but its presence loomed like a living thing. When she finally picked it up again on January 2nd, the reflection stunned her. It wasn't just her idealized self anymore. Her face in the glass had changed subtly, but undeniably. Higher cheekbones, a sharper jawline, and eyes that gleamed with a confidence she had never possessed. The strangest part? When she stepped into her bathroom and looked into the plain, unenchanted mirror above the sink, she saw the same changes. Her real reflection matched the one in the antique glass. She traced the contours of her cheekbones, marveling at their new definition. Her skin was clear, her lips fuller, her hair shinier. It wasn't as exaggerated as the reflection in the antique mirror had been, but it was unmistakable. The compliments began almost immediately. "Did you do something different with your hair?" Heather asked at work. "You're glowing," a regular customer remarked. Even her boss, who usually ignored her, took notice. "Looking sharp, Sarah. Keep it up," he said with a rare smile. At first, she basked in the attention. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt seen, appreciated, envied. She began to carry herself differently, walking with her head high and a sway in her step. Her wardrobe, once utilitarian, shifted to highlight her changing figure. But there were side effects. Her energy waned, simple tasks left her winded, and dark circles began to form under her eyes, marring her otherwise flawless appearance. No amount of sleep seemed to help. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked one afternoon over coffee. "I'm fine," Sarah said, brushing off the question. "You don't look fine. You look tired and pale." Lisa leaned closer, concern etched into her face. "Seriously, Sarah, have you been to a doctor?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't need to. I'm just busy." Lisa's frown deepened, but she let it drop. At work, Sarah noticed something odd about her coworkers. Heather, who was usually full of energy, appeared drawn and sluggish. Their boss seemed frailer, his usual booming voice reduced to a rasp. Even the regular customers looked subtly diminished, less vibrant, their laughter less frequent. The change was subtle, but once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. That evening, Sarah sat alone in her apartment, clutching the mirror. She didn't want to look into it, but the compulsion was irresistible. When she finally turned it over, her reflection greeted her with a knowing smile. The face was stunning, almost inhuman in its beauty, but the eyes were wrong. They gleamed with a cruel intelligence, and for the briefest moment, Sarah thought the lips moved, mouthing a single word: "Mine." She gasped and dropped the mirror. As it hit the floor, the room seemed to shudder. Milo hissed and bolted under the couch, his fur bristling. Sarah clutched her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. When she dared to look at the mirror again, it lay face down, unbroken. In the silence, a faint whisper slithered through the air. "More." By mid-January, Sarah's transformation was undeniable. Her appearance had become the very image of the idealized reflection she'd seen in the mirror. She drew stares everywhere she went, admiration from strangers, envy from colleagues. But the cost was becoming impossible to ignore. Lisa had stopped visiting, her once lively face now gaunt and shadowed. The boutique was eerily quiet, its usual hum of activity dulled by the fatigue of the staff and customers alike. Even Milo, Her ever-loyal cat had grown lethargic, curling into tight balls of fur in dark corners, avoiding her entirely. Sarah's own health was deteriorating. Though her face remained flawless, her body felt like it was withering. A deep, bone-weary exhaustion gripped her, making it hard to even climb the stairs to her apartment. That night, Lisa showed up unannounced, her face pale and her eyes sunken. "We need to talk," Lisa said, pushing past Sarah into the living room. She froze when she spotted the mirror on the coffee table. "Sarah," Lisa began, her voice trembling. "Something's wrong. I've been feeling sick ever since you got that thing." Sarah's stomach twisted. "It's just a mirror." "No, it's not." Lisa grabbed her by the wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Do you even hear yourself? You look like a goddess, but you're barely standing. Everyone around you is falling apart. Look at Milo." Sarah turned to her cat, curled motionless in the corner. Panic gripped her. She picked him up, his tiny frame alarmingly light. Lisa gestured to the mirror. "It's that thing. You need to get rid of it." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. "You don't understand. I can't. It's..." Her voice broke. "It's killing you," Lisa said, her tone firm. "And it's hurting everyone else too." For the first time, Sarah truly looked at the mirror, not at her reflection, but at the object itself. The silver filigree seemed darker, tarnished, and the glass shimmered faintly, almost as if it were breathing. She grabbed the mirror and hurled it to the floor with all her strength. The glass shattered, shards scattering across the room. For a moment, everything was still. Then a low, resonant hum filled the air. The shards began to melt, pooling into a dark, inky substance that snaked across the floor like living shadows. Lisa screamed, stumbling backward as the tendrils slithered toward her. Sarah stood frozen, watching in horror as the shadows swirled and coalesced into a humanoid shape. Its form was amorphous, shifting, its surface shimmering like the mirror's glass. Eyes, cold, piercing, and impossibly ancient, locked onto hers. "You broke the mirror," the entity said, its voice a chilling symphony of whispers. "The gift is not undone, but unleashed." Sarah's legs gave out, and she crumpled to the floor. "Please, I didn't know." The entity loomed closer, its voice like frost against her skin. "Desire is a binding contract you took without thought, and now the cost is yours to bear." Lisa tried to pull Sarah away, but the shadows lashed out, pinning her against the wall. "You will watch," the entity hissed. Sarah's reflection materialized in the dark surface of the creature's form, twisted and grotesque. As she stared, her body began to change. The radiant beauty she had cherished dissolved like smoke, leaving behind a visage that was hollow, gaunt, and lifeless. Her skin sagged, her eyes dulled, and her hair fell in brittle clumps around her. The creature's shadowy form melted into the walls, the room falling silent once more. Lisa rushed to Sarah's side, her hands trembling as she touched her friend's shoulder. "Sarah." Sarah turned to her, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry." Lisa held her tightly, but her expression was one of horror. The next morning, Sarah was gone. Lisa found only a note on the table, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "I can't undo what I've done. The mirror will find another. Please forgive me." The shards of the mirror were gone, as though they had never existed. Miles away, in the display window of a quaint antique shop, an elegant hand mirror sat on a velvet cushion. its silver filigree gleaming and its glass pristine. A small tag hung from the handle, reading, "Beauty beyond compare, $150. Am I living in a haunted house?" I lay in bed reading a horror book when I see movement from the corner of my eye coming from the other side of the closed curtain. I slowly lower my book, my mind screaming at me not to. There is a shadow floating on the right side of my window. At first, I thought it was the shadow of the flag, flapping in the wind, but quickly realized this is no flag. I stare at the shadow as it moves up, then to the left, then down, then to the right, before repeating the cycle again. "What the heck is it?" I mutter. The shadow changes shape repeatedly until it stops, and now resembles the head of a dragon. At first, my curiosity peaks, but then an unexplainable fear overtakes my senses, and I am on the verge of leaping out of bed. Whatever is distracting me does not bring peace my way, but a terror that will affect my lifetime. I thank God the curtain remains closed, for I do not care to see what is producing that shadow, for I had a feeling it will cause my sanity to leave me. Yet there seems to be an unknown force pulling me to the curtains. The shadow floats by my window for eternity, haunting me. I cannot pull my eyes from this shadow. Thankfully, it eventually dissipates, and I can relax. A weight lifts from my body, and the fear dissipates. I get up from the bed, wondering if I should go over to the window and throw open the curtains or exit the room. "Restroom break," I say to myself as I open the door and walk down the hallway to the bathroom. This is the first eerie episode I had encountered in this house I recently occupied. A one-story home with a garage, living room, dining room, kitchen, laundry room, 3 bedrooms, and 1.5 bathrooms. No talk of evil spirits by the past owners, but would they honestly say such to me? For they did not look like such fools. They were the first occupants when the house came into existence, and all went well for them. That is what they say to the ignorant future owner. For the next week, I did my best to explain the bizarre episode. At first, a floating balloon entangled by the pole of the flag. But I never saw a balloon changing shapes by itself. My imagination tends to run wild, especially when I am reading a book. Could this be my imagination at work? I purchased a couple of small dogs to keep me company not long after. Not intimidating to the human world, but hopefully toward the ones from the beyond. It made me feel much better to have another living being in my house. A month went by when the next episode took place in my house. "Get out of there!" I call out to Bingo, the mischievous one, who is trying to get into the fireplace, for I have thrown the covering to the bacon into the place. As I went back to the recliner, I thought I heard a noise come from the back door. I stop in my tracks and listen for a time, but only hear Bingo moving about. I look around not seeing Ringo, so possibly him. The dog's food and water dish are in the laundry room, close to the back door, so very will possible, so thought nothing of the matter as I go over to sit, and back to the book on the Crusades. Not long after I started reading, I heard the noise again. It sounded like something tapping on the door, then tapping the floor, then back to tapping the door. I sat there for about a minute, listening to the episode. "Ringo!" I called out. The tapping stopped. What is that dog doing? I get ready to walk around the corner and into the kitchen to the laundry room, when I hear a distinct sound that stops me in my tracks. The sounds of a heavy boot walking from the laundry room toward where I am. I look around, trying to find something to use as a weapon. I see the small baseball bat lying next to the chair. I quickly grabbed the bat as the steps came closer. I raise it up, ready for the intruder to come around the corner. If the intruder has a gun, my life will end. But I will get in a good swing or two, I hope. I continue to wait as the footsteps cross the kitchen floor, but seems to be taking too long to appear in front of me. I stand there, not sure what to do. The steps stop, and the anxiety goes up. For is the intruder going to appear, or do I go to it? I ponder if I should call out, but it would more than likely come out as a squeak, so kept my mouth shut. Perspiration covers my body as fear grips me. I stand for who knows how long, trying to decide what to do. Decision abruptly comes forth as I step forward toward the kitchen, with the bat raised to swing. I near the entrance to the kitchen, wondering if I should jump out or peek around the corner. Just get it over with, I thought. I leaped out, prepared to swing, but there was no one there. Instead, Ringo looked up at me. I looked toward the laundry room, seeing no movement. "There is no way you could have made those sounds," I said to Ringo. Ringo walked past me into the living room, leaving me to confront the intruder. I meandered through the kitchen toward the laundry room, preparing for the intruder to leap out. But when I entered the laundry room, there was no one there. I checked the doorknob, locked. What could have created those noises? I muttered. There was only one other place I had not checked out, and that was past the laundry room and into the bathroom. The room only had a sink and a toilet, so there was no space for the perpetrator to hide. I walked to the bathroom, seeing no one in the room. I went over to the window and saw it latched shut. "Nothing," I said. I turned around and was about to leave the bathroom when I heard the footsteps again. They started on the other side of the kitchen, coming toward me, but my eyesight saw nothing. I grabbed the doorknob and slammed the door shut as the steps entered the laundry room. I quickly locked the door as the steps came up to the door and stopped. I had the bat raised, ready for whatever tried to break in. If I still had my sanity, I would realize the bat would do nothing to my invisible terror. What am I experiencing? I thought. Too much horror I'm taking in that is bringing madness upon me. I am not a believer in ghosts. But is this what I am encountering? Am I living in a haunted house? I mutter. As I mutter the words, I hear the tapping on the floor, then on the back door, then back to the floor. This went on for a time before it stopped. Then the footsteps started up again, heading to the other end of the kitchen, ending. I slowly opened the door, seeing there was no one around. I need to get out of this area. I rushed toward the living room, at one moment feeling quite cold, but soon I was in the living room by the fireplace. Both dogs lay on the couch, looking at me. "What is your problem?" I can imagine them saying. I went over to the coffee table and grabbed the remote control, put on some sound, and hopefully that will calm me down. I turned on the television and turned up the volume. I did not want to hear the footsteps and the tapping. Part of me wanted to leave the house, to never return. The other half, thinking whatever was creating the noise was not causing me any harm, just freaking me out, I muttered. But not freaking my dogs out, I sat down in my chair, with the bat nearby, knowing the bat was useless against a ghost. But it was reassuring to have it near me. Anyway, the rest of the night, I sat in the chair, watching the tube, then dozed off to wake up an hour later, wondering if the ghost was still around. There is no way I'm going in that kitchen. I eventually dozed off again, waking up off and on throughout the night. My day at work was miserable due to lack of sleep. I spent the entire time contemplating on what I should do. I could move out, but then I would end up losing much money and wind up in an apartment, which I do not want to do. I could go to a church and have a priest bless the house. I could have a psychic or ghost hunter come in, or just live with it and get over my fears. If harm did not come my way, then I should be okay. But what about my sanity? It could make it an interesting home life, I muttered. My life was dull overall, so the reason I read so much of the fantastical. Living this kind of life in my house might be interesting. Of course, part of me screaming I was insane to have such thoughts. It came to me living at the house, encountering footsteps once a month, and little odd things happening. At first, scared, but eventually I became numb. Soon, I was like my dogs, and just enjoyed the roof over my head, no matter how bizarre it was to live under it. Black Book. What is the value of a human life? Henry often wondered this himself. Sometimes it was all he thought about. A person is born, goes to school, gets into a career, and maybe even settles down and has a family. So many factors go into someone's life that it is hard to quantify each variable. Yet, Henry constantly tried to answer the question, And that's why you need to sort the shelves the way the company trained you. Do you understand, Henry? Henry blinked as his manager's words brought him back to reality. He turned to face the red-faced man. Sure thing, I'll get right on it. Apparently unsatisfied with his response, the sniff-necked manager left the aisle with a huff. He didn't know what the manager was upset about this time, but that was his usual response when his boss was angry. Henry felt relieved when he was left alone. The store initially hired him as a cashier. He tried to do his best, but his people skills were subpar. His boss didn't take long to give Henry a new position. Now, he was in charge of stocking and sorting the shelves. It was a peaceful job, except when customers asked him where certain products were. If he had to listen to another customer asking him where the sour cream was again, Henry shook his head at the thought. That was one of the things about people that bugged him. They never even seemed to attempt to look for stuff themselves. It seemed they thought their time was more valuable than his own. During his first few days of employment, the other staff would ask him many questions. Hey, how's it going? Did you catch the game last night? Why do you just stare off into space sometimes? Henry would always answer their questions the same way. I can't talk right now. They seemed to catch on that he didn't want to speak to them. His mind had more important subjects to think about. He only took this job because Henry thought he could think about life from a different perspective. His real work had been stalling for some time now. Henry just felt like he needed some inspiration to propel him forward. That was what he hoped to achieve working at a grocery store. So far, all he had achieved was to get a piercing headache anytime he spoke to anyone. As he stocked the shelves, trying to remember how they had trained him, he yearned for something society said was wrong. He checked his wristwatch and saw it was 4:45 p.m., almost halfway done. Soon, Henry could pursue his real passion. Time went by in a blur for Henry. It was 5, then 6, then 7. And before he knew it was almost time for him to leave. He looked at the shelves and saw they were all in perfect order. All that would be left for him to do now was clock out and walk out the front door. Most people would then get into their cars and drive home to their families. Henry had no family, at least none that were still alive. That thought used to pain him when he was a kid, but thinking about it now, he felt nothing. He had gotten used to living alone. Besides, since he was alone, no one could disturb his work. Henry had been watching one of his co-workers for the past few weeks, a bright and full of life young female who would be attending a well-known college in the spring. If overheard gossip was to be believed, she had a promising future. She was, however, known to be promiscuous. Everyone at work knew about it, and every time her boyfriend would come to pick her up, Henry could feel the tension in the air. Some guys she had been intimate with even worked at the grocery store. Many of their co-workers would show disgust with the woman, but Henry didn't have an opinion. He was more curious about it than anything. A woman who seemingly has a perfect life does something consistently to jeopardize everything. It fascinates him. That was why tonight he was not going to be going straight home. Henry already had everything planned in his mind. He just needed to wait. And patience was one of his strong suits, if nothing else. Henry walked to the back of the building and observed the woman, Ashley. She was going about her usual end-of-shift routine, seemingly without care. Once Henry had clocked out, he pretended to be doing some paperwork. Essentially, he was just stalling for time until Ashley was finished talking to the other employees. As the minutes passed, Henry wondered what she could be talking about for so long. That was another thing that Henry had trouble understanding. Small talk. What was the point of talking about subjects both sides knew the answers to, but pretended they didn't? It utterly baffled him. This was why his work was so necessary. Soon, I will have another piece to the puzzle. I know I am so close to understanding, so close to knowing what makes a person a person. I just need more experiments, more time. Finally, he saw a woman with 2 blonde pigtails and wearing her uniform with modifications, revealing more of her body than was appropriate. Looking at her, even Henry could see why all the guys went for her. She was fit, perky, and seemed to be, on the outside, a ray of positive energy. However, he wasn't interested in any of that, because his interest in her came from a different place. Okay, see you guys later. Ashley said this, and waved goodbye to everyone she had been talking to. They waved at her and said an unsynchronized goodbye. After moments, Henry got up and put away the papers he had been pretending to read. He saw that no one was watching and left out the back door. His car was parked in the parking lot, and he got inside. Ashley was still in clear view as she walked down the sidewalk. With a turn of his key, his car came to life. Henry knew the exact path she would take to get home. The key to any good plan is careful calculations, after all. He went the opposite way, instead of driving behind her and potentially being seen by a coworker. From his planning, he knew there was a spot where he could park his car and wait for her to walk by. Then, he would say he was having car trouble and ask to use her phone. As he drove to the spot, his lips moved upward into a smile. During his actual work was the only time he felt any real emotions. For the time being, he couldn't help the smile on his face, nor did he want to. However, once it was time to begin, he would be stoic and show nothing. The spot was empty, as Henry knew it would be. He carefully drove the car in and shut off the engine. Now, there was some time before she would arrive. It was perfect, allowing him to start the entry in his black book. Henry opened his glove box and felt around for it. His fingers touched a firm edge and the black book's distinctive leather texture. The answers to Henry's questions were within its pages, and it was his life's work. He felt like she could be the one to fit all the pieces together. Sighing as he opened the book, he knew he had thought those exact thoughts before. No, she is different. I am confident she is the one. My work is almost complete. Then I can rest. Yes, relax and enjoy life. Enjoy? What does that mean? Have I ever enjoyed anything? Yes, my work brings me joy. Henry violently shook his head in an attempt to clear his thoughts. He checked his wristwatch and knew Ashley should be passing by any minute now. The car door creaked as Henry opened it, and the ground beneath his feet made a crunching noise as he exited the car. His senses were always heightened as when he was working. Then he heard the distinctive sound of approaching footsteps. I know, right? You won't believe what she said to me after that. Her voice echoed through the night sky, and the words' high-pitched tone hurt Henry's head. He popped the hood of the car and grabbed his work bag. Pulling a rag out of it and dousing it in a potent knockout agent, he felt calm. Henry hid the rag in his pocket and bent over the engine, pretending to examine it. When Ashley saw Henry, she jumped at first. Then she saw who it was and seemed only to get more startled. Henry pretended not to notice her for a moment. Using his best acting skills, he looked up at her and put a surprised look on his face. Oh, hey, Ashley. Yeah, my car just sort of crapped out. I've been trying to see what's wrong with it, but I might be out of my league here. He could see her hesitate, and Henry thought she might just turn and run. Maybe her survival instincts were telling her to flee for her life. Ultimately, she seemed to take a breath and compose herself. Did you need any help? You would help me? A strange man in a dark alley? She chuckled at that, and that confused Henry. He genuinely asked her that question, and she thought he was joking. Was it because they worked together, leading her to believe she knew him somehow? In the end, Henry didn't know. Do you need help or not? I got to meet up with someone soon. Of course, that would be great. Thank you. Can you just hold a light over here so I can see the engine better? Sure. She opened her phone and turned on its flashlight. Ashley approached the car's hood and held the light high to expose the engine. Let me just grab a wrench. 1 second. Henry went around to the back of the car and pulled the rag out of his pocket. That was when it happened. and it didn't surprise Henry. His vision started to turn red, and his head began to tremble. His ears began to ring, and he had to hold on to the car as dizziness suddenly overtook him. The symptoms only got worse and worse until he blacked out. When he came to, he was sitting in the front seat of his car with his black book in hand. He sifted through the book, remembering where he got it. It was at a yard sale, of all places, where he first saw the black book. The book seemed to call to him with its ornately designed cover. Immediately, he went over and picked it up. He remembered thinking that this book was what he had been missing his whole life. Henry gave the owner whatever insignificant amount of money they had wanted and left. That was the day his life had truly begun. Now, he had a passion for his work, his genuine work. Focusing on the present moment, he opened the book and read its most recent entry, Participant 264. Name, Ashley. Perky, attractive, promiscuous, naive, trusting, deceitful, social. Performed fingernail removal on both hands. She screamed in agony for several minutes, surprisingly. Then, she became silent. After a few minutes of silence, I proceeded with a finger removal. This elicited intense emotions from the participant, which went on for several minutes. After I removed all the fingers and the screaming and pleading stopped, more work was required. Starting from the wrist, I cut the skin and peeled it back all the way to the elbow. I took great care to ensure the patient didn't black out from blood loss. The results of the experiments had to be seen on the patient's face. This continued until there was no more skin on both her arms. At this point, the participant was slipping in and out of consciousness, and I knew it was time to end the experiment. I used an axe I bought from a camping store, and placing her head against the floor, decapitated her in 2 swings. It would have been 1 swing, but I lost my footing. It was very unprofessional, and I will take care to prevent this in the future. In conclusion, Ashley was an interesting subject, but not the one. She would not be the one to answer my questions. More experiments to follow. Henry sighed after he finished reading. He closed the book and put it back in his glove box. Looks like the book didn't find what it was looking for. When Henry tried to remember his life before the black book, he couldn't. If he tried to recall the memories, a great pain would follow. That doesn't matter to me anymore. I am not that person anymore. Move on. Wait a second. Maybe what I need is a fresh start. Just me and my book together. Yes, a new name and a new life. This town is getting old, and inspiration is lacking. Yes, Yes, yes. He shook his head until the thoughts stopped, then rubbed his eyes. Henry checked his wristwatch and saw it was almost 6 a.m. They would soon be looking for participant 264, and the idea made Henry chuckle. There was no way they would ever find her. He had made sure of that. That didn't matter to him, though. He needed to look toward the future, for he was one step closer to knowing the value of a person's life. My brain through your brain was an optimist, and so, naturally, was the thing that lived in her brain. She awoke one Tuesday morning to discover the change. At first, it was merely a mental echo, barely perceptible. Two indistinguishable minds, one off by a fraction of a second. For Katie's every thought, there was an echo, trailing just behind. Over the day, the new brain drifted further out of sync, and soon she could hear its thoughts, almost identical to hers, but distinct. Eventually, they started talking. "Who are you?" Katie asked. "Katie Singleton," the voice said from inside her head. "That's me." "You're new in there." "I guess so," the voice said. "Sorry." "Don't be sorry." Katie was an over-apologizer, too. "What should I call you?" "It's hard to get past Katie," the voice said. "How about Princess Penelope?" Katie asked. It was the name she'd given her imaginary friend when she was an 8-year-old princess junkie. Princess Penelope had filled a void. Playmate, partner in mischief. The sister she never had. The voice was as thrilled as Katie was. It remembered the same childhood. "I love it," she said. "I feel so fabulous. I'm Princess Penelope." Katie wondered what her therapist would have to say about all this, but decided to just go with it. It was nice to have someone like-minded to talk to. They quizzed each other as Katie waited for the morning train. Phone held to her ear, so onlookers would think there was a real person on the other end of the conversation. "Favorite color?" Princess Penelope asked. "Turquoise," they said together. "Turquoise. Movie?" Katie asked. "Eternal Sunshine," they replied simultaneously. "Eternal Sunshine." "Guilty pleasure food?" "Rocky Road," Katie said, as Princess Penelope replied, "Raw meat." Katie paused, puzzled. It was the first discordant note of their friendship. The train arrived, and they got on. Together, of course. "You seem distant," Noah said. It was Sunday morning. They were burrowed under covers, hiding from the daylight. "Just like eternal sunshine," Princess Penelope noted. Katie had thought the same thing. She smiled. It was like having a sister, a twin. Noah waited for a response. "See?" he said. "You're somewhere else." Katie had felt disconnected from Noah well before the appearance of her invisible friend. Their relationship was stagnant, all unhealthy patterns. She pretended to laugh at his jokes. He feigned interest in her plans. "So, what is it?" He seemed more annoyed than concerned. When she moved to the city to be with him, everyone said that she was moving too fast. that it was a bad idea. In time, Katie realized that they were right. She and Noah didn't really know each other, didn't even like each other. "Did you meet someone?" She traced the line of his jaw with her index finger. Gently. "Can't we just be quiet together?" she asked. Noah sighed, but pulled her close anyway. "I'd love for us to tell him," Princess Penelope said, "but he'd never understand." At the market for dish soap, Katie became distracted by the meat aisle. She settled on a pound of ground chuck, leanest she could find, 98% fat-free. It made her feel less guilty about the purchase. "It's okay," said Princess Penelope. "You know, pregnant women also crave protein." Katie didn't see the relevance, but didn't argue. The woman at checkout eyed her suspiciously. Katie wondered if there was something in their demeanor that called attention to them. "Are our eyes twitching?" Katie asked Princess Penelope aloud. "Excuse me?" the woman behind the counter responded. Katie quickly took her bag and went to the alley out back. By the dumpsters, she tore through the plastic wrap and pulled out handfuls of ground beef, squished it between her hands, into her mouth. Her teeth released saturated blood from spongy tissue to drip down her throat. Princess Penelope almost cried inside her, and Katie felt sustained in a way that was new to her, supercharged. "Oh, God." She buried her face in the package of meat, gobbling like a starved mutt, sucking down every stray drop of juice until her tongue lapped against the styrofoam backing. "Oh, God. What are you?" Katie asked. Noah slept in the bedroom. They'd barely spoken that evening. When she came in from work, he told her she looked sick. It was true. She'd examined herself in the bathroom mirror, cheeks hollowed from lost weight, bags under her eyes, dark as bruises, thinning hair, chapped lips, sores. Still, his words hurt her feelings. Princess Penelope's, too. Now Katie sat on the couch, streaming shows she'd already seen. A shield of noise so Noah wouldn't hear her talking. "I don't know," Princess Penelope answered. "A figment of my imagination? Some part of my brain? I don't think so," Princess Penelope said. "I exist. I'm not a stray thought, or a ghost, or anything like that. But what do you look like? I can't tell. I only see my brain. Through your brain, if that makes sense." "It does," Katie said. "I think there's something you saw, or maybe read. A clue. I'm going to look." Princess Penelope could find memories Katie had lost. It was a wonderful secret shared between them. Her internal friend could call up, with perfect clarity, forgotten birthday parties, replay, word for word, conversations with friends who'd moved away, recover romantic feelings for Noah from those blissful first months when he'd been her lifeline in an unfriendly new city, rescue her mother's smile when she'd been happy, her father's when he'd been alive. Let me know if you figure it out, Katie said. Princess Penelope went quiet while she searched, and Katie felt lonelier than ever. Shows replayed in front of her, and she didn't bother clicking yes when the "still watching" prompt appeared. She fell asleep sitting up. No transition. Her brain just clicked off like a light. "Wake up," Princess Penelope said. Katie opened her eyes. She stood in the bedroom, facing a wall. "What's going on?" she asked. "Don't be mad," Princess Penelope said. "What happened?" Katie willed herself to turn from the wall and realized that she couldn't. Princess Penelope was in control. "I won't be mad," Katie said. "Just show me." "In a minute," Princess Penelope said through their mouth. Now she was the one using it. "I realized what it was. You saw a video in high school, science class. The zombie wasp. It played in their head. National Geographic. Wasp larvae take over a caterpillar while feeding on it from the inside, directing it to gorge itself until they're ready to eat their way out." "You're a wasp?" Katie asked. "Something smaller, I think," Princess Penelope said. "But the same idea. Some kind of bug, maybe." "A bug?" Crawling around inside her skull. It was too unsettling. Like an itch you could never hope to scratch. "I know," said Princess Penelope. "It's icky." Again, Katie tried to turn her head. Nothing. The muscles of her body were completely disconnected from her thoughts. "Show me what happened," Katie pleaded. Their head tilted down, and Katie saw their hands, covered to elbows in blood. The rest of it. "Please." They turned from the wall, and Katie saw it. Bedspread spattered red. Hammer slathered in gristle. Flesh and bone chips. Tools. Kitchen utensils. Noah disassembled. Chest slashed. Innards strewn. Organs in a pile. Some half-eaten. Sightless eyes staring. Head cracked open. Skull emptied. "I realized what I was really craving," Princess Penelope said. "I didn't want to wake you, but it was delicious. You have no idea." Katie saw everything. Her degraded face in the mirror. Aches all over. New ones every day. The way the light from the bedside lamp now gave her headaches. That sour smell she didn't recognize on her own breath. "I'm the caterpillar." "I think so, Katie," Princess Penelope said with real sympathy. "But I'll go on. Don't know if it helps, but your memories will live in me." Katie felt herself cry, but no tears came. She imagined them falling inwardly, pooling in her steadily shrinking chamber within the brain that had once been hers. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Let's get ice cream." Rocky Road? It was a nice thought. Princess Penelope knew her so well. The Sculptor of Lyon. Jacques heard someone enter his fifth-floor studio. Heard the heavy groan of the old wood door. Heard the tired thing thunder back into place, slamming with a finality that said no more. And it was the only thing that stopped him from pitching forward from his balcony into the street. below. Rich heels snapped against the scuffed parquet floor, and the boards underneath strained against the weight of every step the stranger took. "Hello?" came a man's voice. Jacques relit his cigarette for the fourth time and looked out over Lyon. His studio was the top floor of a tower, sitting in the crook of the Saône, and he had a lovely view of the Pont de la Folie. They still called it the New Bridge, even though it had been reconstructed nearly a decade ago, in 1841. He could just see one of his lions from this angle, a stoic beast carved of marble, watching over the people of the city as they crossed the bridge. One of his first commissions. "Hello?" came the man's voice again. It was curious but calm, familiar but unrecognizable, a voice that tugged at his memories and hid at the corner of his eye. Jacques puffed. If he should fall from his balcony, he'd tumble 5 floors and strike the cobble below. With luck, head first. But it would leave a mess for his landlady. And besides, he had company. Ah, but the Pont de la Folie. If he snuck out at night, he might throw himself to the mercy of the Saône and let it wash away the grayness of his life. "Hello? Jacques? Out here." He flicked the last of his cigarette over the railing. On the balcony, the steps drew close, and only once Jacques felt the presence of another beside him did he turn. And Jacques, startled, beside him stood a man dressed head to toe in rich reds and blacks, accented with gold buttons and chains and jewelry. His boots were buckled with gold. His hands were covered in black satin gloves, and upon his head sat a broad-rimmed hat with a white feather in the band. The clothes screamed wealth, if not style, though perhaps they whispered a style to come. "Monsieur Desrosiers." Jacques cleared his throat. "Pardon me, sir, but I was not expecting you." "No matter." Monsieur Desrosiers smiled and patted Jacques on the shoulder. "I've come to take a look on my commission." Something cold shifted in Jacques' bowels. The commission. It was the one thing he didn't want to think about, and the one thing he couldn't stop thinking about. It was beautiful. It was hideous. And for better and worse, it was the only thing that kept him alive. If it hadn't been for the chance encounter with Monsieur Desrosiers 3 months ago, on a moonless, foggy night, when Jacques planned to get well drunk and then to go looking for trouble, whether in the dark alleys of Lyon, or in the waters of the Saône, or by means of the loaded pistol he kept in his pocket, he might finally have been done with it all. But when they ran into each other just outside Fournier's, Monsieur Desrosiers insisted they enter the bar and share wine. And when Jacques told him of his misery, of his heartache, of giving up, Monsieur Desrosiers insisted further. "I can't do it anymore," Jacques said. "Every breath I draw is torture. All I want is to hold her again, to feel her skin against mine. "There's no greater pain than that of the heart," said Monsieur Desrosiers. "But this is the well from which we draw art. Tell me, what do you intend to do with the piece?" "I don't know. I will smash it." "Impossible," Monsieur Desrosiers said. There was no alarm in his voice, just a statement of fact. "I'll not hear another word. I'm commissioning you to finish it." And the price he offered, coupled with the wine, was not something Jacques could refuse. Jacques lit another cigarette. "This way, sir." He took his patron to his workshop, a dusty place filled with statuettes, busts, blocks of various stones, and wooden frames, a place dominated by a column of a man's height, covered by a white cloth that promised severe edges. A stool sat before it, and hammers and chisels littered the floor, scattered like afterthoughts. "Show me," said Monsieur Desrosiers, circling the covered statue. "It's not finished. It cannot possibly be finished. Art never is. Reveal it. It's grotesque. A cruel mockery. Impossible. Your hands are magical. They sing to the stone. Come, do not keep me waiting." Jacques tarried only a moment longer, and then listlessly he pulled at the cloth. There was a radiant guile. "Marvelous," said Monsieur Desrosiers. "She's simply magnificent." He touched the cold marble, placed his hands on the midriff, ran his palm up the perfectly smooth abdomen, cupped an ice-cold breast. Jacques felt his throat harden. Said Monsieur Desrosiers, his thumb and forefinger cradling a nipple. "Such attention to detail. So like the real thing." His hand slid to the abdomen again, and then began sliding lower, following her contours, following the map of her muscles and flesh. Lower, ever lower. "Sir." Jacques grabbed the other's hand. "Sir, please, it's unfinished, very delicate." Monsieur Desrosiers locked eyes with him for just a moment, but then a wide grin bloomed on his face. Of course! How boorish of me to interfere with the genesis of art. But I tell you, you have made an exquisite piece here. It's so like life." Jacques felt the cold in his guts roil. He beheld the work that consumed him, the statue of Camille, the torso of Camille, rather. She stood on the stumps of her hips, and she had no arms. Neither had he been able to bring himself to carving her head, her precious face. Not yet. Not ever, perhaps, but lifelike? Yes, Jacques had to admit that was true. He knew the map of her. His fingers had traced her every path, and he'd drunk deeply of her, gotten lost in her shallows. He couldn't count the nights they'd spent in soft embrace, or the fervent daylight moments they'd stolen together. There was no greater love, he knew, and she was forevermore his heart. It was Monsieur Desrosiers that had introduced them, and Monsieur Desrosiers, his enigmatic patron, the man who discovered Jacques, who secured his first commissions and helped him build a name for himself. The man convinced of magic hands, convinced that there was nothing they could not sculpt. The man who knew very well what he was doing when he brought Jacques and Camille together, and then left them alone. Ah, but this cold, dead stone. It merely looked like Camille once. Looked like her before her death, before her murder. It was hard and unyielding and had none of the vibrant warmth of the real thing, of his muse. This was a horrid effigy, and no more. You have outdone yourself, Monsieur Desrosiers said. Truly, your work honors my niece. It's unfinished, Jacques whispered. I have a hunch it soon will be. I've a sense for these things, as you know. No magic hands myself, but a sense about art, yes. Now come, we will celebrate your progress and looming breakthrough. Monsieur Desrosiers brought libations. They started with wine and moved on to absinthe, and all the while, Monsieur Desrosiers talked about his views on art and how through it he firmly believed man could pierce the veil through force of will alone, he said, to create, like God. Jacques' vision swam, but Monsieur Desrosiers seemed cogent, no matter how much he downed. But the conditions must be right. We must truly want it, as only the empty heart of the artist wants. Soon, Monsieur Desrosiers said, you are my most prized sculptor in all of my stables. Soon you will prevail. I don't doubt it. Now, I leave you to it. Jacques finished what remained of the bottles after his guest departed, deep in the black of night. The man was strange, and always appeared at just the right time, or just the wrong time. It was M. Desrosiers that introduced him to Camille, and then later introduced him to the news of her death. It was he that found her, strangled, they said, among the rose bushes on the family estate. The murderer never found. It was he. Jacques didn't know if it was he. M. Desrosiers was the last to see her alive. That didn't mean anything. Besides, it was disrespectful to harbor such suspicions about the man who funded him. Besides, it was too terrible to consider if Monsieur Desrosiers had played a role. If instead of doing something about it, Jacques had merely taken those funds. Jacques downed the rest of the absinthe and settled into fitful, fanciful dreams. In his mind, Camille came back to him. He embraced her statue, and in the moonlight, she turned into his lost love. They danced through the night and laughed, and he twirled her faster and faster. 1,000 questions filled his mind. How had she returned? What was the other side like? Did she still love him? Did she know he still loved her? but all were strangled by his pressing need to hold her, to have her. They loved like it was their last day, their first day, their only day. And he fell asleep in her embrace, tangled in sheets, feeling the warmth of her touch once more. By morning, that touch had grown cold. He awoke to a piercing headache and found himself draped over the unfinished statue, the headless, faceless cadaver, the armless and legless corpse, the pale imitation of a woman whose voice he could barely remember, whose touch he craved more than breath itself, cold, 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 but soft. He gripped her shoulder and found his fingers sank into the marble, deformed it like skin. Gray skin, pallid skin, and webbed with dark veins, nearly black. He rose to sit, tried to lift her, and found she bent backwards, as though she had a spine, as though she were flesh, dead flesh. Jacques recoiled, swore. What was this? He wondered. Was this the drink? Had his mind finally broken? That was when he noticed himself sinking into his bed, his sheets, bunched in his tightly closed fist, had themselves grown soft and veiny, and covered in irregular tufts of hair. And the bed, a large slab of fibrous meat, heaved under his weight. His other hand sunk into it, and something cracked. He pierced the surface, exposing a shattered, brittle bone and a gush of foul blood. Jacques screamed. The bed heaved under him as he leapt to the floor, and the parquet beneath his feet turned almost at once into a meshwork of impossible fingers, too long and too short, with too many joints, fused at all angles, all writhing and snapping and cracking under his panicked retreat. Every tool he touched turned into a shivering mass of malformed bone and sinew, screaming of wrongness, and every wall he stumbled into blossomed into a rippling bruise, a labyrinthine organ, a tortured thing filled with fluids. The air in his studio grew hot and moist, and blood and other things dribbled from 1,000 open sores, his shrieking unending. He charged for his door and the stairway beyond. But no sooner had he placed his hands on the heavy wood than it cracked into a wee of ribs, hiding a colossal, misshapen heart of dozens of chambers, each beating a deafening drum and spurting gore everywhere. Jacques turned and fled for his balcony. Too late. The balcony itself became a broad, lolling tongue which rolled back and kept him inside, and thousands of jagged, splintered teeth erupted from both the ceiling and the floor. The whole tower shuddered, ground against itself, writhed in fury and meaningless pain, and collapsed under its own weight. It pitched forward and splattered into the Saône, with a finality that said, "No more do flamethrowers belong in the library." We lose people all the time. It's just the nature of the job. What can you expect from a place full of nooks and crannies? People intentionally go to get lost in. I usually don't worry when I don't see someone for a while. But when it's been days since someone's checked out, it's usually a sign that I need to step in. I'm not doing this alone, thankfully. No librarian is ever truly alone, are they? I have help from the watchers and listeners of the shelves. Thanks to them, it usually doesn't take long to get the scent, if you know what I mean. However, today is one of the rare and unfortunate exceptions when my search has exceeded more than an hour, and an hour is pushing it. I've been searching and asking around for almost 6 hours, scouring shelves and listening for the telltale breathing. The watchers have their quadrants, so it's much like playing hot and cold. Bad news, one says, and my brain shivers in my skull, both from its existence and its statement. They crossed the tape, says the watcher, and I groan. Are you sure? My stomach still drops at the thought, even though I've been doing this a very long time. Long enough that I remember every book on every shelf better than my own child's face. But knowing a poor soul lost themselves beyond the tape, I grieve for them. The watcher doesn't speak, but generates an affirmative sensation. That means I have to backtrack to my desk for supplies. I thank them, asking that they send word ahead of my arrival. It's been a while since I've had to go past the tape, which means it's been a while since I entered the broom closet. The helmet is dusty. It looks almost like it's from one of those old-fashioned scuba diving suits. It's not nearly so heavy, though. There's a bright lamp affixed to the front just above the visor, but it's as much of a hindrance as a help. While most of the time, those beyond the tape know not to bother me, some still get bored enough to try. And the lamp acts like a beacon. I don't blame them. It's what prisoners do. Find the weakest among them and test their mettle. I've got a sack full of unperishables, tinctures, aspirin, and a compass. Not like the kind you're used to, but would take too long to explain. And time is of the essence, so I'll let your imagination handle it from here. I sling the sack across my body and fasten my waist with a utility belt that would make a trust fund bat character with abandonment issues jealous. It's got floss, lighters, matches, and a few more tools that don't exist outside of the library. The last thing I grab is the flamethrower. This is where I should be very transparent with you. I'm not actually the librarian. I'm the librarian's assistant. I know, isn't that just your luck, right? Not to worry. I'm very good at using this thing, and it does the job nicely. Whatever job I may deem necessary at any particular moment. But the head librarian doesn't really need much of anything to ward off what lingers here. I don't know exactly where he is at the moment, nor do I want to know. If this were a real pickle, I would summon him. But while a rare occasion, it's not unusual in the scope of 1,000 years. After all, no one comes here without the intention, whether it's conscious or subconscious, to get lost. It's the nature of this place. But you know that, don't you? It's why you're here, after all. It doesn't take me long to find the tape, which is fortuitous. Sometimes it moves around, but the watchers and listeners kept a beat on it this time, so as to direct me. Yes, it is really dark. Yes, it's literal tape. Hazard tape. But that's almost like a beacon to the adventurous, isn't it? I think the library knows that. It's greedy, but it's also quite discerning in taste. In some circles, that means that I should extend congratulations to you. In others, I offer my sincerest sympathy. I hear my name and ignore it as I crawl through the crisscross of reflective strips. The tape moves not at random, by the way. It genuinely serves as a warning, whether it's gatekeeping sections currently under construction, in repair, or missing. I try not to, but I think that last one has something to do with where the head librarian went. Don't worry about it. My name is not important, so ineffectual that I've forgotten. I hear my name again as I begrudgingly turn on the lamp. Not a lot of help, just enough light to ensure I don't trip over anything or disturb the shelves. Many sleep here. I send off a warning shot from the flamethrower, showing I carry more light than just atop my appetizing head. The flash of flames sends things slithering. But most of those this close to the tape have never been very convicted by nature, so I'm not concerned. There are more listeners and less watchers past the tape, for obvious reasons. Thankfully, they say I don't have to go too far. I look down at the telling clicking sound to see rocks rolling. Some as big as my foot, and some as small as the tip of my thumb. The smaller ones move more easily, but all are rolling as if pulled toward a central point. I don't even need the compass, but I glance down at it one more time before stuffing it back into the sack. While I don't have to go too far, things are relative here. 10 steps, maybe 10,000. And so, even after only a few moments of exploring, I feel acute pressure jamming into my temples. My heart feels like it's being squeezed, and my vision blurs. My fingers tingle by the time I'm able to shake the aspirin into my mouth. I chew it, ignoring the sound of my name, my true name, the one only I can hear. You'll hear your own as well, if you stay here long enough. My vision clears, which just means the dark looks sharper, and I sweep another warning arc from the flamethrower for good measure. I do this as much because I love the sound as for protection. I also appreciate the warmth. It gets cold here, but in a strange way, which shouldn't surprise you at this point. It's cold, like how the first signs of spring show in the early morning dew that's only just melted. I can smell and taste the sweat on my upper lip. And it's cold, and then I hear it. A few or 1,000 steps later, the breathing sound I've been listening for. The pace of the rocks quickens, and my head is turned down, so the helmet light prevents me from tripping over or impeding their journey. A famous author once said, "All things serve the beam." And that's as true in this world as it is in the others. Except this beam, this beacon, is attached to our lost visitor. I can only hear the rocks, mumblings, and the breathing sound now. The smell is so musty and thick, like the air is full of sweat and dust, like I've stuck my head out the window during a heavily falling rain. If I think hard enough about it, soon I'll be drenched, so I don't. While the rocks are almost the perfect tell, and the listener's too corroborates the evidence, you can never be too sure. Only light can be sure. I take a match from the tiny box, snap it to life, and then blow it out. Tiny smoke tendrils curl and waft until they also follow the same flow as the rocks. Excellent. We've not been led astray. A few or 1,000 more steps, and the rocks are gathering down an aisle where the breathing is more like wheezing, like the desperate struggle to take in. Lo and behold, we found them. Poor thing. Judging by the state of her, she got lost early. She's likely been here for most of the day. The book covers her face, consuming her head like a kid on a particularly large popsicle. The pages flutter gently against her too white jaw. The papery quality of her skin and the wanting muscle mass show how little time was on our side. Not a moment to waste. I grab the book by the edges of both back and front covers. It's got most of her head inside at this point. Just her earlobes, hair, and edge of her jaw peek out from beneath the pages I now grip firmly. The wheezing turns into a moan that turns into a sob. Now, I say, and test the hold the book has on its victim. It's snug, too snug to yank like a leech. I need to treat it like a tick, making sure to get the head out. None of these are intended as puns, but it just happens after being surrounded by books and prose for so long. I draw one of the tiny vials strapped in my utility belt and pull the cork out. It smells like nothing to me, but I see the reaction immediately. Our half-consumed explorer moves a bit, her fingers mostly, and I hear a second, tinier moan beneath that of the books. I pour a small amount of the substance into the palm of my hand, and I smooth it gently down the spine of the book. It wails again, and so does the girl, both full of sorrow and reluctance. I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, so I turn at the hip, cock the flamethrower and send off a very intentionally long tail of flames. When the feeling subsides, I shrug the weapon back over my shoulder. I use the backs of 2 knuckles to knock gently on the book cover. It's time to come back now. My apologies, I say, and I mean it. The book and the girl moan again, more hollowly, and I can feel the seal, the bond, splitting like a seam. I grip the book again, because these 2 are stubborn and have to pry them apart. The color and mass return beneath her skin, and though her eyes are open, they can't see anything. She'll be like that for a while. It's normal. She'll recover. I pour the remaining contents of the bottle down the part of her frazzled blonde hair. Tears fill the empty eyes and drip down her face. Her mouth presses into a thin white line and grimaces so intensely that the flesh folds in multiple layers at the corners of her mouth. Great pain. Even after 1,000 years, I still can't help but feel sorry. So I pull her burning head under my chin and rub circles into her back. I'm sorry, dear. I know you've been told otherwise, but this place is a prison, and that isn't your story. Yours is still being written, and the one which made you pretty promises is lying and jealous. One day, you, if the world is cruel, may yet have a place here. But it's not today. So let's go have a cup of tea, I tell her, as I've told many like her. I've gotten better at it over the years. I used to have to fight with them. Often, I'd give up and just keep them safe until the head librarian got back to talk them down. She finally lets out a weak, wheezing breath. I take advantage of the broken seam of her lips and pour a tincture down her throat. I don't even have to look anymore. I can just feel the specific melodies that make each tincture different. It helps that the one I need usually sings a bit louder as a courtesy, and it'll purr like a cat when I've touched my fingers to it. She chokes a bit, but her eyes start to clear. Good enough for now. The back of my neck has another sudden influx of goosebumps. We've overstayed our welcome. It's time to go. I put the book back on the shelf. I don't scold it, just allow its ache and frustration flow through me. I apologize, but there's no comfort I can give. My words and compassion are meaningless. I've noted the volume and will tell the head librarian. They might be able to soothe it back to sleep. I tap the metal bauble around my neck, and we're back at my desk. I drape the girl onto a nearby love seat that's seen better days, starting the kettle before heading to the broom closet to stash the emergency kit. She'll be fine. People like her, and you, always are. This place was made to help the wanderers and recklessly imaginative, those who can't wrap their heads around the world the way it is, and can see the truth of magic between heartbeats and heartbreaks. And people like me and the head librarian when they so choose to grace us with their presence, keep the place orderly and open for you. And we're here to help guide you back on track if you lose inspiration for your own story. It's the nature of the job, the library itself. What else can you expect from a place full of nooks and crannies that people choose to get lost in? Collision. Dices drove west, obeying the speed limit, and he trembled as he tried to light his 7th cigarette of the morning. His lips tingled around the filter. He smelled his own stale breath, captured in the palm he cupped around the lighter's weak flame. He swallowed against the sticky thudding of the pulse that beat too high in his throat. The cigarette caught the flame and smoldered. Dices cracked his window, and the smoke that drifted up to burn his eyes was sucked away into the cold morning. He coasted under yet another green light. He'd encountered only green lights, insistent go, go, go signals from the universe. Heavy slugs crept in his bowels. He sucked greedily at his cigarette, crossing his eyes to watch the ember glow. Flecks of ash dusted his lap. Another green light. Dices flicked a quick gaze to the dashboard clock, cursing his good luck, slowing down, willing the minutes to move. He was running early for his appointment, so many factors having contributed to the unwelcome streamlining of his journey. He still hadn't gotten used to the lack of traffic on the Rue. Everyone took the new Magway now. The perimeter gates of his settle block had been open already, and he hadn't needed to wait for security to buzz him through. The sobriety checkpoint had been unmanned. His trip had taken 10 minutes, fewer than he'd planned. Another green light. The car's rusted axle scraped a deep pothole in the middle of the intersection. Dices thought about pulling over to kill time, but he knew if he stopped the car, he would not be able to start it again. He inhaled a huge, head-spinning drag of smoke and opened the window a bit more. His hand shook as he poked the tip of the cigarette out the window to tap its growing column of ash onto the street. A nervous tremor rippled through him, and the stick fell from his nicotine-stained fingers. He fumbled instinctively, knocking his knuckles against the glass, and the drafting air pressure caught the cigarette and blew it back at him. He didn't see where it landed. The car was full of kindling, fast food wrappers, flammable with grease, sun-brittled paper, dirty clothes. He imagined the back seat catching fire and tried to reach behind him, patting, feeling for the errant ember, grimacing at the green light visible above the next empty intersection. Dices felt a huge, hot bug bite his left elbow and reacted by slamming his foot against the gas pedal. He yelped and smacked the sleeve his cigarette had fallen into. It burned as he ground it into his skin. The car veered. He shook his sleeve out, flinging the still smoldering cigarette out of his cuff, and made to stamp it out on the floor mat, wincing and checking the time, and still accelerating under the last green light. And when the flustered panic retreated beneath his original anxiety, he finally looked back at the road, just in time to watch a man disappear under the front of his car. He braked far too late, long after being gently jostled by two soft thumps below him. Dices never got to find out if he possessed enough cowardice to pull off a hit and run. The pitchy squeal of badly maintained brakes and the crash of chassis on curb alerted supplicants of the Tor Vahgar. They streamed out of their temple to investigate, their white ceremonial robes billowing in the morning wind. Dices sat still, his hands locked in grip around the wheel, as if he meant to strangle it. He wished he could let go and light a cigarette, but that would mean he'd next have to open the door, step into the morning, and face the red, squeezed tube of a body on the road behind him. Would it be wet, steaming in the frigid air? Was his car heavy enough to squelch organs from orifice? Or would he find less messy, blunt force trauma? He pictured dirty tire tracks on a crushed throat. Might the man still be alive? It was that thought that loosened his grip and allowed him to move, sludgy slow, on shock cocooning autopilot. He reached for his cigarettes and felt a flood of relief when he found that 2 smokes remained in the worry-crumpled package. His hands were steady when he lit one. He got out of the car and watched the white robes flock to the stillness in the street. A woman stood over the body and cried, while another tapped off a message on her handheld. A man knelt, the pristine hem of his robe drawing road dust up through fabric capillaries. He reached for the body with tentative, gentle fingers. They all saw the gun at the same time. It had been knocked several feet from the dead man. A scratched-up, bootleg particle cannon. Tech from an old empire, illegal and devastating, primed and still pointing at the temple of Tor Vahgar. Dices thought ridiculously of that old game. Spin the bottle. He sat on the curb and smoked, not wanting to bother the Vahgarans with his stink, not wanting to yellow their roads with his residue. Sirens wailed, melancholy and distant, approaching via the magway. The crying woman ran back toward the temple, calling a name in an alien language as she flitted inside. Barana! Realization of their narrowly escaped victimhood widened the eyes of the Vahgarans on the street. Shock ran through them like a contagion. Vulnerability dawning like a weak sunrise. They stepped away from the body, their eyes on the gun, as if it might come to life and shoot them on its own. More Vahgarans exited the temple, joining the congregation that formed in the road, keeping a safe distance from the downed would-be gunmen. They discussed in hushed voices, asked shrill questions of each other, and gradually their attentions diverted to the silent, smoking man sitting on the curb by his ruined car. The man with the dirty hem approached Dices and crouched, "Sir," the Vahagaran said. "Sir, are you all right? Are you injured?" Dices blew smoke away from the man's intent, searching face. "Don't think so. Don't think you're all right. Or don't think you're injured." Dices blinked. "Both, I guess." He wanted to laugh. He'd killed a man. He would not be making his appointment. "He saved us!" A woman rushed over, the one with her hand held out, the one who'd presumably summoned the emergency vehicles that were now speeding down the Magway's off-ramp onto the Rue. Blue and red lights spun halos in the morning fog around them. Sirens muffled the increasingly frantic voices of the Vahagarans as their attentions closed in on Dices. He stubbed his cigarette out on the concrete and pocketed the butt. He didn't want to litter in front of these pristine, holy people. Saviors have to keep up appearances, he thought. Admiration was foreign to Dices, and at first he mistook it for suspicion. When the responding officers were finally able to pry him away from the Vahagaran, the media, and the tangle of emergency vehicles, they took him to the police station and parked him in an interrogation room. They gave him a cup of hot chocolate. They shook his hand. Short, neatly groomed Officer Kayata led him outside to smoke when he requested it, though she wrinkled her nose while she waited for him to finish. He caught a glint at her throat, noticing the stylized Tor Va Garan saucer pendant she wore on a delicate chain, an icon of worship, veneration of the alien hands that cradled Earth, mending it from its human-inflicted wounds. "You should really stop that," she said, squinting her eyes against the smoke as he exhaled. "It stinks. They are my lungs, and I'll ruin them if I want to," he thought. He narrowed his eyes at her pendant. "Not that you'd understand." Officer Kayata took a call on her handheld, walking a few yards away as Dices blew smoke into the still cold early afternoon sky. "This is about to get a lot bigger," she warned him as she strode back to him, her call concluded. A Tor Vagar ambassador was supposed to be at that temple today. She maintained her professional demeanor, but Dices didn't miss the sparkling hint of tears at the corners of her eyes. Back in the interrogation room, Dices sat on his hands to both hide their trembling and warm them up. Officer Kayata brought him another hot chocolate and sat primly in the metal chair across the table from Dices. Fluorescent lights clicked above, probing and harshly bright, the better to scrutinize you with. This is just a formality. Officer Boskov, gruff and bushily mustached, shuffled incident reports and witness statements on the metal table. "You're not in any trouble. We just want to get our facts straight. As you can imagine, the entire Vahgaran community stands behind you. You told him about the ambassador?" Officer Kayata nodded. "They've offered their best lawyers, but I don't think you'll need them. They've also set up a donation hotline." Dices clenched his stomach against the tide of bile that threatened to rise. He wanted a cigarette, but his pack was empty. He felt the deprived addict's headache peeking around the corner, waiting to ambush. Officer Boskov's voice took on a serious tone, and he asked the question Dices had been dreading. "Where were you headed when you saw the gunman?" Dices swallowed, pausing for a moment too long. "Going to the doctor. My lungs," he said, freeing a hand unconsciously to reach for the empty pack of cigarettes in his pocket. He thumped a tightly closed fist on his chest. He thought a cough might be too much, too performative. "Will your doctor verify that?" Boskov clicked a pen, made a note. "I was hoping they'd see me as a walk-in. I was coughing up blood last night." "I see," Boskov said. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his mustache as he regarded Dices. "Now, I know this might be hard to talk about, and you're probably still in a bit of shock, but I need you to describe what happened again, with all the detail you can remember. Start with when you first saw the man on the street. What caught your attention, and what made you act?" "Again," he said, his eyebrows raised with kind concern. "You aren't in trouble. Fact is, you're a hero whether you see yourself as one or not yet. You prevented what could have been an absolute massacre. That gun was modded and energized to gar and back. You saved a lot of lives. But we need to get everything on record." Officer Kayata twisted the Tor Va-Gar pendant she wore, her expression thoughtful, thankful. Dices tried to keep from hyperventilating. He cleared his throat. He spun his tail. He'd seen a furtive, suspicious man crossing the street, with Hunter's eyes narrowed and predatory. A gun, hefted and steady, striding with obvious, murderous intent toward the temple. Dices told the officers how he'd accelerated without hesitation, careening for the terrorist, without fear for his own life, steering to kill and damn the consequences. It was the right thing to do. He had been out of his body. Righteous instinct taking over. And all he'd felt was relief when the man's rampage was aborted under his balding tires. He'd almost convinced himself the story was true, until he found himself absent-mindedly scratching the blister on his left elbow. Vivette, the Va-Garan PR representative, was a harried woman with 2 briefcases and a shaved head. She wore glasses and chewed gum like it fueled her, and her frantic productivity agitated and exhausted Dices. He tried to pay attention to the several trains of thought she conducted. "Tor Barana will want to join you for some press conferences," she said, typing a proposed media circuit schedule on a shiny laptop. She checked the official Va-Garan forums. 4 independent congregations set up charity pools to cover any legal expenses. Gifts are coming in from all over the place. "Is there any weird stuff about you online that I should know about?" "I don't think so," Dices said. He sipped tepid coffee, and forced himself to take a bite of his rubbery omelet. Vivette had wanted to meet him at his home, to make you feel more comfortable and for privacy, she'd said. But he suspected she'd really wanted to scope out his situation and avert any potential PR crises before publicly canonizing him into the Vah-Garan sainthood. He'd refused, citing embarrassment about his messy bachelor's apartment. She'd looked at him suspiciously, but had caved and met him at a cafe downtown. Time was of the essence for a story like this, she said. Already his face was plastered across screens and papers, his full name emblazoned in impact font under epithets like the hero of New Hartford and a savior's savior. Vivette checked a text message on her handheld, an email on her laptop, a notification on her watch. Information about Dices assaulted her while he watched, tapping a nicotine withdrawal beat on the table with his fingertips. Oh, look, the Massippi branch got you a new car. She turned the laptop around and showed Dices a photo of grateful, white-robed zealots smiling next to a state-of-the-art mag car. Dices sneered. He hated those identity-stripped husks of bland futurism. You don't like it? She asked, catching his expression before looking down to respond to another text message. If I'd had one of those today, I wouldn't have been there to run down Corsican, Trent Corsican, the other face of the day. The lone terrorist with a grudge against the benevolent aliens and their worshippers. A regressivist with a raided apartment full of heretical literature and MacGyvered weapons. Dices couldn't picture the man's face as having belonged to the body he'd smeared on the road. The visage and the corpse felt like two different men. Dices felt like two men as well. The one who'd been anxious about an appointment earlier, and the paragon of righteous bravery he'd become. He needed to get home. He had to clean his apartment. It is a bit ironic, isn't it? The Tor Vagar give us magtech, and then you go and save them with that pollution machine relic. Oh, your Reward a Hero fund is up to 17 million credits, Vivette said with an uncharacteristic awe. Wow, I'll say. She narrowed her eyes. How do you feel about joining a Vah-Garan chapter? It's a great organization, and it would look great. Dices clenched his teeth. I guess I could do that, he said, thinking of 17 million credits. He felt a piece of his principles snap off inside him. Great. A conversion might seem pandering if we do it too soon. She checked her calendar for a good baptism date. Okay. He really needed to get home to clean, and you're going to need to stop smoking. Vivette gave him a disappointed mother's face. It's terrible optics, and it smells awful, and it's bad for me. I know, Dices thought, and he'd never wanted a cigarette more. He pictured himself smoking in his new mag car. The two versions of himself collided. The rebel and the hypocrite. Is there anything so sacred as a being's right to self-destruct? Dices wondered as he finally lit a cigarette. The smoke collected in the dark room, his comforting blanket of reckless autonomy. Dices had waited for the mag cab to pull away before unlocking the door of his apartment. He'd wondered how many more times he'd go through that familiar motion. He was now the owner of 60 million credits and could already taste the fresh air of a new settle block. A skyscraping penthouse with windows that opened to let in the cleanest clouds. It was dark, the grimy settle block quiet, secured for the night against the scavenger sects. Dices had slipped inside the apartment, already feeling estranged from it, a trespasser, and he'd locked the door behind him quickly. He'd gone straight for his stash of smokes, navigating the clutter without needing to turn on a light. He sat now on a ratty couch full of cigarette burns. He touched the circle on his elbow. "We match," he said out loud, and laughed. He thought of the new couch he'd buy. Something soft, pillowy, something not pulled from a dumpster, something he might try to fall asleep on without a lit cigarette between his fingers. Maybe it would be nice to live in the world the Tor Vagar race was trying to build. Dices exhaled, and he couldn't see the smoke in the darkness. He never felt the drags as effectively when he couldn't see the evidence of them. He saw emissions as proof of life. Was a sterile world a lived-in world? He'd believed destruction was inevitable, and more insidious if hidden. He coughed. It was too dark to see any blood. Maybe it was good he'd missed his appointment. He imagined his beautiful, freshly painted penthouse again. Then he thought of its opposite. A run-down safe house in a derelict settle block across town, sitting empty. He hadn't had a chance to give the house's rusted key to Corsican. It was still nestled in his pocket, alongside a pamphlet containing encrypted contact numbers, meeting coordinates, and credit stash codes. He'd lusted after the assassination bounty before, but now it seemed pathetic. An insult, hardly enough to rise from ashes with. A getaway driver was supposed to provide a new life, but not for themselves. He wondered if the Tor Vagar ever felt that way, rerouting a civilization from its path of shit, finding themselves gods when they finished. Sorry, brother in cause. Dices raised a fresh cigarette in salute. To new lives. He lit the cigarette, wondering if it would be his last, and used the same flame to burn the regressivist pamphlet, The Adventures of Jack and Celine. Content warning: bugs, fire, darkness. Not for the first time in his life, Jack's Sunday afternoon was saved by vintage pornography. There was a magazine in the dusty antique store, full of printed reproductions of saucy sepia scandals, and he flipped through with a schoolyard grin. "Oh my God," said Lisa. "Don't look at that, you jerk. Hey, You dragged me out to this dump, so don't complain. And I ain't jerking anything. Yet. Lisa rolled her eyes and made that "don't be gross" groan. Or maybe it was the "don't embarrass me in public" one. Whatever. I'm going to go look at armoires and pretend like we're not engaged. Love you too. Jack flipped through a few more magazines, and it struck him how natural everyone looked. No airbrushing, no Photoshop, not like it even existed back then. Their bodies simply were as they were, adequate. Did society just have much healthier ideas of body image back then? It occurred to him there could be real historical merit in formally studying this. And then he wondered how he might go about getting a grant, especially considering he wasn't a historian or any kind of researcher. Oh my God, what am I doing? He set the magazines down before he ruined porn forever. Still, if he had found this, then maybe this antique shop of Lisa's wasn't a total waste of time. He decided to take a stroll down the creaking aisles and see what else he could find. Most of it was kitsch, but when he spotted the toys and games section, his eyes widened. And then Jack spotted her, Celine the centipede, a segmented orange plush about a foot long, slumped on a shelf. Her fur was patchy, and her one remaining lacquered eye scuffed. But it was unmistakably Celine. Faded memories stirred in his mind. Long-forgotten thoughts stretched. A buried history awoke. He recalled a giant bonfire with all his family there. Other people too. Maybe it was a holiday? Little 8-year-old Jack, swaying in the welcoming glow of the flames as they kept the night's chill away, belting out Camptown races, and then collapsing into a fit of giggles. And all the while, Celine safely nestled in the crook of his arm, protecting him from all the monsters that dwelled in the shadows. "Oh, wow," he said, approaching the toy shelf. I can't believe it. He didn't notice Lisa sneak up on him. What is that gross thing? Her name is Celine, Jack said, stressing it. And she is not a gross thing. She was my best friend growing up. Aw, that's so adorable. And sad. Adorably sad. We went everywhere together. She was there for me when my parents. Lisa hugged him. It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. No, I'm fine. It was so long ago. Jack reached out to pick Celine up from her shelf, and Lisa slapped his hand. Ew, don't touch it. What the hell? You don't know where it's been. It's probably covered in all kinds of gross stains and smells and fleas. Centipedes don't get fleas, Lisa. Jack, she said, squeezing his arm. It's not a real centipede. Now behave. I'm going to go arrange delivery of our new armoire. And after that, we can head down to Murphy's for a pizza and beer. Jack watched her leave, and then turned his attention back to Celine. It looked just like her, just like the one he used to have. In fact, she was even missing her third left foot from the front. "Hello, Jack," said Celine. Jack gasped. "It is you! Was there ever any doubt?" Celine coughed, and some of her fur came loose. "Are you all right? Time's been a real bitch to me. Let me tell you, Jackie boy. Speaking of which, who's the tramp?" "What, you mean Lisa? Hey, she's my fiancé." "Oof, condolences, buddy," Jack scoffed. "Don't say that. I love her, do you? Or does she just have your balls in her purse? I mean, what the hell is an armoire? I don't know." "Exactly, Jack. Nobody does. It's made up. She made it up to sound smarter than you." "That's not true." Jack heard the petulant note in his voice. Still, he couldn't help crossing his arms and sinking into himself. "You know what she sounds like to me, buddy?" Jack shook his head. "A shadow monster." Jack gulped. "No." His voice was tight. Cold memories washed over his skin. Memories of vile things that lurked in the dark, all biding their time to snatch him. Some lurked under his bed, others in the closet. The biggest one, King Grumbler, lived down in the basement of their old house, where the lone, naked light bulb never gave off enough light. Night was a time of horrors incarnate, at least until Jack met Celine. Celine protected him. She watched over him while he slept, and with her around, he actually could sleep. She showed him the light. She was the light. With her on his team, nothing could stop Jack. He felt a dull ache in his chest. Why had they ever parted ways? It must have been in chaos after the accident, after his whole life was flipped upside down and he lost everything. "Yes," Celine said. "A shadow monster. A creepy crawly." "Don't!" "A gristly ghouly." "Stop it." "Grabby stabby!" "Stop!" Jack's shout muted the store. Celine raised her front dozen feet in surrender. Okay. Calm down, Spaz." She scratched one of her rear segments. "Didn't realize you felt so strongly about it. Although I guess it is pretty brave of you, marrying a shadow monster." "Celine, she's not a shadow monster." It just occurred to Jack how much crap was in this antique store, and how weak the lights were. Everywhere he looked, there were dark nooks and umbral crannies. A life-sized suit of knight's armor cast a long shadow down a narrow corridor. But the suit was also big enough to hide at least 3 monsters, if they were real, of course. Jack shook his head. He wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. He'd outgrown it. "I don't know what you see in her anyway. I always thought we were better together. We even have a ready-made couple's name, Celiac. Did you just ship us?" "And what the hell, Celine? Why would you go with Celiac instead of the obvious Jacqueline?" "Oh, Jacqueline." Celine weathered another coughing fit. "You're right. That's pretty. I like it. So, we're agreed then? You're gonna dump the chump and roll with me?" "What?" "Drop the slop. Ditch the bitch. punt the cup. Celine, what has gotten into you? She wasn't always like this, was she? It used to be all fuzzy hugs, warm giggles, and whispering secrets to each other long into the night. For all of his worries and all of his fears, she always had an answer. She'd been just what a frightened, lonely 8-year-old needed. But Jack wasn't a child anymore. I'm not leaving Lisa. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that's a fact. Celine drew herself up. Unbelievable. Crossed dozens of feet. After all I've done for you. She shook her head at her neighbors on the toy shelf. I should have expected it. The shadow apple doesn't fall far from the shadow tree, it seems. What's that supposed to mean? Your parents were the biggest shadow monsters of all. That's not true. Come on, Jackie boy. It's your bedtime. No snacking before dinner. Brush your teeth, young man. They were insane. They were. Jack gulped. His memories of his parents were few and far between, but he knew they were good people. Weren't they? All those things, they just sounded like regular parent things. Celine leaned forward and clapped her feet. Oh my God, you don't remember, do you? Remember what? All I remember is, you used to be nice. Like that time we had a big bonfire with all the neighbors, and we got to stay up way after bedtime, and we sang Camptown races and laughed, and that nice lady gave me an apple juice. Nice lady? That was a paramedic, you dumbass. What? Come on, remember. Celine started humming Camptown races. Jack remembered working on a project earlier in the evening. Lots of papers, shredded papers, papier-mâché. That must have been it. An art project to show his parents how much he loved them. Only, in his memories, he was scattering the papers all around the house. Celine cleared her throat with another cough and began singing. Grab a lighter and some gas. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Kill the shadows with some flame. Oh, dee-doo-doo-day. Jack remembered. With Celine clutched under one arm and the other arm dragging a gas can all over the neighborhood, he belted the lyrics out at the top of his lungs. She provided harmony. She told him where to go, how to arrange things, and when everything was ready. Start your lighter, Jackie love, and give the gas a little kiss. Within seconds, 6 cookie-cutter houses erupted in a huge fireball that rose into the sky, and when bright-hot figures ran out of the conflagration, waving their arms in the air and screaming, Celine told him those were just the shadow monsters. They saw his work, and they had a change of heart. And now they were dancing and singing and happy and bright. And so Jack sang louder too, and he danced with Celine, and he danced much longer than the silly shadow people who got tired real quick and laid down to sleep. Jack screamed. Aw, you remembered, Celine said. About damn time, my little pyro. Jack screamed more. "You have no idea how bored I've been since they took you away from me." Jack took a deep breath and continued screaming. "Come on, Jack. Let's go murder some folk. Just like the good old days." Jack continued screaming. Blam! A thundering blast right beside Jack. He fell into trembling silence. An old man in thick, square glasses stood right beside him and lowered a shotgun. Little remained of Celine's shelf other than scorched wood and a smear of orange fluff. "Ah, dang it," said the old man. "You know, I put up a sign, but people don't read. Keep donating their haunted toys and cursed dolls and whatnot." "Oh well, so you're fine to deliver it on Wednesday?" Lisa asked. "Yes, ma'am. You can count on it. That's a lovely armoire, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it for a long time." He shook Lisa's hand and then departed. "Well," Lisa said, entwining her arm with Jack's shivering one, "I told you that thing was gross. Anyway, guess we're lucky he was nice enough not to charge us for it. Now come on, let's go get that beer and pizza, red rum." "Cut!" Leonard shouted, snapping the movie slate shut, dizzy with the relief that comes after the end of a shoot. "Thanks so much, Francis. You're good to go." "No, thank you, Lenny," Francis Keaton replied, shaking Leonard's hand. "I hope we meet again." "Me too. Good luck with your Nespresso adverts." "Where's Liliana?" Leonard called out to Travis, who shrugged his shoulders. "Travis, you reek of whiskey. It's called method acting. I had to do it all the time for Streetcar." "Ah, there you are." Liliana Hoyt, who seemed to be winning every acting award going, was grabbed by Leonard and manhandled by two of the producers onto the set. "Hey!" she screamed. "Get off me!" "You could have dressed up," Leonard said, as Liliana got thrown onto the bed. "Actually, it's fine. Just pull the comforter over her." One of the producers threw some rope around her hands before tying them to the headboard. "Leonard, what the fuck is going on? Where's Margot?" "What about her?" The same producer silenced Liliana, her face bluing in mute appeal with a strip of duct tape. Suddenly, her legs were flailing, writhing, kicking, helpless in the face of the director's conspiratorial will. And action. An unsteady Travis walked onto set, holding a chainsaw, its roar drowning out Liliana's muffled howls. Where its teeth kissed her leg, blood, first a trickle, and then a surge, began to mist the whole set. "Travis, stop!" Margot Devine, the actress who had claimed the starring role, walked in at that very moment. "Is everything okay?" Liliana called me about an extra scene. She clapped her hands to her face in horror once she saw Liliana's dismembered limbs. "Oh my God, please, detective, I don't want to watch it anymore," pleaded Leonard, turning his head away from the footage. Detective Montrose switched the computer off before turning his attention back to Leonard, whose face was still blank with anxiety. "You do know how this looks, don't you, Mr. Leary?" Montrose said. Yes, of course I do. I mean, it's there, on screen, for all to see. You directing Mr. Waterman to saw Ms. Hoyt in half. It was a prop. Okay. Montrose wrote this down. And this was for your movie, was it? Yes. A prison without walls? Yes, Leonard replied begrudgingly. You know, it took 2 weeks at a writing camp in Prague to come up with that. For a moment, Leonard felt it was just him and the detective at the center of the universe, the tape recorder and folders props, and the light bulb swinging pendulum-like above, illuminating the room with an unwelcome light, only there for an added theatrical frisson. Mr. Leary, I'm confused, to say the least, Montrose said. Not one of you has a motive against Ms. Hoyt. Can we please just rewind, going back from Ms. Hoyt's death to the day you started? What, again? Please? If you wouldn't mind. 24th October, 3 weeks into filming, after 10 seconds of looking furiously for Travis, I found him perched on the banquet in the corner, his arms and legs splayed across the leather. It reminded of that scene in Pulp Fiction when Pumpkin and Honey Bunny ransack the diner. Travis fit the aesthetic perfectly. Even though he was a star of the stage, he could well have been a vagrant. Sorry, I was hungry, he said, like a naughty kid, with a chocolate mustache and a half-eaten banana split in front of him. Would you like anything? No, I'm fine. I can't stay long. Travis's hair was incredibly greasy, striking that unfortunate balance between being neither curly nor straight. Jesus, your breath reeks, Travis. The scent was a mix of red wine, cheroots, and patchouli, all rolled into one. Anyway, I think you know why I'm here. Do I? Yes, Travis, you do. It's about your wife, Margot. I don't have a wife. Oh my God. In the movie, Travis. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Margot and James McClane, played by Liliana and Travis, began life as a vision of cold, jodhpur-wearing elitism. But when they went bankrupt, were forced to downsize and move across from the Feldmans, whose marriage they ended up shattering. Liliana dropped quite the bomb the other day, I continued. Travis furrowed his eyebrows. Sorry, who? Liliana. She plays your wife, Travis. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't get involved with the other actors. Holding my nose so as not to inhale any more alcohol breath, I tried one more time to get through to him. Liliana wondered if you, as her husband, would kill her in the script. You're the cuckolded alcoholic in the marriage, so it's completely plausible. Oh, that's fine, Travis said, the red wine talking. Really? It would require you to film some extra scenes. Are you available next week? Yes. Great. Thanks. I gave him a slap on the shoulder. She says it's because she doesn't want any trouble, but she wants to be a main character. Audiences love murder. I think that's the problem with movies these days. You don't have to explain yourself, Travis reassured me. Let's kill this bitch, 22nd October. My muscles coiled as soon as I caught sight of her. Liliana, who I am pretty sure was my least favorite, which was no mean feat, had called me unexpectedly to run through some things. And I got the feeling it wasn't to discuss the movie. It never is. The restaurant we had agreed to meet in was an upscale eatery on the fringes of the town center, the sort of place reserved for illicit liaisons and big ultimatums. I knew Liliana spent all her time as an actress, if she wasn't wielding an arc on the silver screen in places like these, possessing the sought-after elixir that wangles 14-course taster, meals and corners tuxedos businessmen into the nooks of dingy bars. "Thanks for agreeing to this, Leonard," she said in her native southern twang, her brazen authenticity chording a jarring note against the coy contentment of the restaurant. Liliana was rakish and spidery, her face so pale as though made of reconstituted porcelain, the cruel origami of her arms stretched to hug me. "No, really. Thank you. Have you ordered?" "I haven't." "Great," she said, perusing the menu. "You know, I haven't got long, Liliana. I have to dash It's Lily. And what do you mean you have to dash? You're such a bad liar." "What?" "Let's see how convincingly you can lie about where you were last week, when you saw me and Margot having a go at each other." She picked up the knife, as though she was poised to dissect me. "Why are you looking so worried?" The waiter arrived, absolving me of this question. He took our orders, looking askance at Liliana as he did so, probably surprised at how underdressed she was. He would be right. It was clear Liliana didn't fit in here. It came to herald a changing of the guard. No longer were places like these populated by the jewel-draped dames who held an ice-bedded coupe in one palm of their hand and the piqued interest of their stupid director in the other, but now overhauled by a new generation, one of them being Liliana, a raven-haired, new-age Janet Lee. "I'll try and be quick," she said, sipping her wine. "But Margot Devine, fucking Margot Devine, is not a subject I can discuss without completely going batshit crazy. I hope you understand. I don't know what you mean, Liliana." "Oh, drop the act, Leonard. You know exactly what I mean." "What? You saw us. I saw you. Saw us." "What?" "Oh my God, don't even try to." "When we stopped filming, me and Margot went to... And you, I don't know what you're..." "Look, I don't care. I know you're lying. All I wanted to tell you is that I know you. I've met directors like you before. A zillion of them." This was a lie. Liliana's showreel was suspiciously short. "And I know what gets people like you going," she continued. I stared at her with my eyes wide open, loudly glugging my wine, so the silence she left was even more pronounced. "Money," she explained, as though this wasn't obvious. "Of course it's money, right? And what's that gotta do with Margot?" "Haha, it has everything to do with Margot." Liliana leaned in, her breath hot on my cheek. "I didn't want to have to tell you this. Obviously, I didn't. Not even my mom knows. But Margot and I, we had a thing some years ago. Liliana bit her lip defiantly, numb with inexpressible loathing. I don't think you can call it a thing, to be honest. But Twitter will have different ideas. It didn't even last a year. I have to say, I'm surprised. I improvised, hiding my face with my glass. Margot's a big star. Exactly. Margot Devine, darling of the acting world, splashed all over the front pages because she's been having an affair with another woman. And not just any woman. The next Neve Campbell, of course. Liliana, I don't... You know who'll come out of this the worst, Leonard. Not me. No. Not even Margot. But you. No one will watch your movie. No one will care. No one will ever want to hire you again. The prospect, although shocking, yet entirely plausible, was a terrifying one. What are you suggesting? I asked. Look, I know this is gonna sound mad, because I know we're so late into the shoot, and I know how hard you've worked on the script, but how about we kill Margot's character off? I just think this is what the script needs. So you want to kill Margot off? Yes. You can give her a big send-off if you like, but I just don't think Margot belongs in this movie. Okay, I said, summoning the waiter for more wine. I'll see what I can do. 14th of October, 2 weeks into filming, I had known these people for just over a month, and I already knew that they were the worst people I had ever met. Margot was a man-hating sociopath. Liliana was a man-eating snake. Travis was a narcissistic man-child. And Francis was simply a very annoying man. Lenny, you with us? Francis called out. I've got to go in 20 minutes. Can we wrap this up, please? Sure. I made my way back to the studio. The custom-made house for the movie, inhabited by Grace and Roger Feldman, played by Margot Devine and Francis Keaton, respectively, was gorgeously uniform and pastel. Something even Martha Stewart would be proud of. Their marriage was literally like something from a TV commercial. Something rehearsed, shot, and then left in a studio. Something always destined for the snap of a director's slate. It was so hollow, so unreal, that someone could scrawl over it with a black marker pen, and no one would notice. The Feldmans lived in a world full of Minnie and Roman Castavets, where everything was dystopian and rabid bunny happy, where apples seemed to pick themselves, where lawnmowers began without prompt, and where babies slept without protest. And that's a wrap, I announce, weak with relief. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? In what was my only break of the day, I go for a cigarette and watch the world go by. The town, a mass of either failing or fledgling shops, of laundromats and fried chicken, was a buckle in the belt of dusty, apple-knocking America. A montage of sandy browns and russet reds that quite happily elided into one long sepia smudge. and then a shout, a scream, something that threatened to disrupt the even tenor of my walk. Just leave me alone, they spat, the voice emanating from a woman's head in the distance. What do you expect me to do? The blonde girl replied. I inched forward before doubling back when I realized who they were. Margot and Liliana. Look, I know neither of us could have foreseen this, Liliana said. But I don't want you trying to talk to me in front of everyone, okay? I think it's fine, Lily. Getting the feeling this conversation wasn't something I should be hearing. I backed up against the wall and bowed my head. Everything had seemed so civil on set up until now. Then again, it was to be expected. Actors could behave like little children. No, it's not fine, Margot, continued Liliana, spitting fury. And to make matters worse, they've given me the same fucking name as you. That'll be all over TMZ when they find out about us. Lily, please, do not touch me. Honestly, I swear to God, after we do this, if you come near me again, then I will call the police. Leave me alone. 9th September, the table read. I hated an ensemble cast. This time, luckily, I only had to contend with 4 different personalities. But it was the personalities that was the difficult bit. The 4 elected professionals, the starlet, the treader of boards, the scream queen, and the smarmy one you see on Nespresso adverts, were due at lunchtime, a pretext to picket finger food and bitch about the agent they all once had in common. It was when I finished putting the food and drinks together that Margot Devine, the first to try my smorgasbord of bread rolls and oil dips, decided to arrive. With her eyes in some sort of half squint, forever suspicious of any gathering of men or any errant camera, Margot had her hair scraped back into a lick of blonde and was wearing an outsize puffer jacket. I pictured her getting bundled into a Land Rover by her press agent, the jacket pulled over her shoulder blades with perma-pincered fingers, moving as fast as her praying mantis legs would permit, like a Weinstein protege whose daily intake amounted to nothing more than an iceberg lettuce leaf and a cube of blue cheese. Margot, hi. I greeted her awkwardly, kissing her on both cheeks, feeling the shocking realness of her bones. There's someone in the elevator coming up, she said, upturning her nose. I'm not sure he's a part of this. I think he's the one who does the Nespresso adverts. Francis Keaton? Oh yes, that's the one. Ah, I said, sawing Francis at the door. Speak of the devil. First shooting to international fame in his early 20s, much in the same mold as Leonardo DiCaprio. Francis Keaton was the nation's sweetheart. With orange skin and one remaining tuft of hair, he was clearly still clinging onto the vestiges of youth. But as he was Francis Delano Keaton, the perfect riposte to any insult, he was most definitely forgiven. One dimply smile from his much-pinched cheek, and you would just swoon. So, who else we waiting for then? He asked in his frothy drawl. Just two more. Who are they? It's not Meryl Streep, is it? No, not Meryl, unfortunately. It's Travis Waterman and Liliana Hoyt. Ah, Liliana, the woman of the moment. Liliana's coming? Margot asked, tweaking her sleeve. Yes. Oh? Is there a problem? Oh no. We just haven't seen each other since the whole cabin in the woods debacle. Oh yes, Francis laughed. Right, bloodbath, wasn't it? Ah, I beamed, breaking the awkward silence that came thereafter. I think that's them now. With an A-list swagger she could only mimic, Liliana Hoyt entered at that exact moment beside Travis Waterman. Liliana, making her name through low-budget art house movies, could not be more different from Travis, who was securely established as the doyen of theater, earning his first Tony nomination for his performance in Othello. I wondered how they would react when they would learn that they were going to be playing a married couple, which reminded me, the script I would have them read, written by myself, of course, was tentatively titled A Prison Without Walls. It was about a married couple in the 1950s, the sort to hold Tupperware parties and send their children to elocution lessons, who find themselves reevaluating their priorities when a new couple moves in across the road. Hello, Leonard. Good to see you again. We had never met before. Good evening, Travis, I said, showing them to their seats. The five of us arranged ourselves in the most curious of configurations, with Margot and Travis at one end, and Francis and Liliana at the other. So, I hope everyone's got the right script, I said, taking charge. Yes, Travis responded, remarkably quick for someone who had all the zeal of a narcoleptic. But it says here, my character's an alcoholic. Is that... No. James falls off a wagon when he learns his wife, played by Liliana, is cheating on him. Is that? Yep, it was an awkward subject. Everyone knew Travis was an alcoholic ever since his stint in Cat on a hot tin roof. At least it's not me doing the cheating, Francis quipped. Actually, you are, I corrected. Roger cheats on his wife with Liliana's character. No one thought it appropriate to respond. TMZ had a helicopter above Keaton's mansion for months after he ordered a prostitute to his home while his wife was on vacation. Liliana craned forward, opening her mouth to speak. Leonard, it says here my character's called Margot. Margot. Yes, it's spelled differently. Well, I hope you don't confuse us, Margot interjected. Everyone shot a sideways glance at Margot, sulking in the corner. So, I said, slapping my knees. Shall we begin? It was finally time. We all took a sharp intake of breath before turning the first page. Francis was still smiling. Liliana was still staring at me. Travis was still dwelling on his character arc. And Margot was left to quietly fume about the fact that her namesake was played by her arch enemy.